A young woman went out to celebrate her 20th birthday with friends a few days early. About midnight, she wasn't feeling well and asked her friends to take her home, but they weren't ready to leave yet, so a coworker offered to drive her home. But when she accepted the ride, she had no idea that this decision would prove to be fatal. He raped and murdered her and left her in a field approximately 10 miles from town. Hi, I'm Mindy. Welcome to the Missing Link channel. Every missing person and unsolved mystery case is just one missing link away from being found. Hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified of my future videos and help us find that missing link. This is the second video in this series on the rape and murder of Stephanie Schmidt. If you haven't watched the first video, you're going to want to watch it before you continue watching this video. I will put a link above. In the first video, we discussed so many things. The crime, how the defendant went on the run, how he was on America's Most Wanted, how he led the police to her body, how he confessed to the murder, how he pleaded guilty, and how he was sentenced. How the legal system had failed Stephanie and allowed this criminal back on the streets. I am so glad that the judge made the right decision and imposed the right sentence. I am so glad he increased the usual penalties for these crimes. He will die in prison unless somehow he lives to 119. And then he would still have to get all of the credits for good behavior and somehow get paroled. Not gonna happen. This monster will be in prison forever. And that is exactly where he needs to be. Stephanie's parents and her sister published this book about her. It is full of so many stories and so many memories from so many different people. There are letters in here from the president, the mayor, the governor, so many different friends, family, principals from Stephanie's schools, neighbors. Stephanie was truly loved. Almost immediately, Stephanie's parents and her sister took action. They sued the Department of Corrections for allowing this monster to be back on the streets, allowing this monster to hurt Stephanie. They had a duty to protect the public, and they failed. I am still amazed that at that time, it was up to the parole officer himself whether or not he told an employer about a person's criminal history, especially when they were a sex offender. I can't believe that his parole officer let him get a job in a college town working at a restaurant with a bunch of female employees, women that were the same age as his last victim. The parole officer was more worried about the defendant keeping a job than he was about protecting the women that he was around. Stephanie's family definitely believed that this parole officer's silence was a contributing factor in Stephanie's death. Would he have been employed at this restaurant if they had known the truth? Would he have ever met Stephanie or her work friends? Would he have been invited to the party that night? Would he even have had the opportunity to kidnap, rape, and murder Stephanie? Also, if Stephanie had known the truth about him, would she have accepted a ride from him? And the answers to all those questions would be a resounding no. Stephanie did nothing wrong. She accepted a ride from a coworker, and the other friends and coworkers knew that Stephanie was with him. There is no way that Stephanie would have gotten in that pickup truck if she knew that he had been convicted of rape before and served 10 years in prison. Stephanie's dad believed that Stephanie was just a victim of opportunity. The defendant knew that Stephanie would accept a ride from him. He would have Stephanie all to himself. I wonder if that when he offered to drive her home, did he already know what he was going to do that night? Or did something in that pickup cause him to commit these crimes? Did he hit on Stephanie or ask her to go back to his apartment and she refused? Why did no one know that he was a convicted rapist? Why was his job as a dishwasher more important than the young women that he came across? Why was this man out of jail? The Department of Corrections had no answers for these questions. The Schmidts created a nonprofit organization called Speak Out for Stephanie. I even found an old shirt that I still had kept. Stephanie no longer can speak for herself. Other people have to speak for her. The focus of this organization is changing laws, changing attitudes, and changing lives. Jean and Peggy and Jenny also wrote another book. In the book, it reads, "Because public awareness is a foundation for making intelligent decisions, the public must have easy access to information about released criminals, help shine the light into the darkness of silence." Stephanie's parents and sister continue to speak out on her behalf to change the laws that gave every consideration to her murderer, but none to her. Her senseless death was a result of the reckless, shocking, and intentional secrecy of a criminal's past. If I had only known, echoes from that silence. Distribution of criminal information is vital to the preservation of our communities and must be accessible to the public. To allow the silence of criminal records is to invite a repeat of this tragedy. The Stephanie Schmidt Foundation has created safety and awareness programs for grades K through 12 and beyond. Because there is no age limit on crime victims, safety and awareness cannot be limited or restricted by age groups or gender. They also wrote, after seeking a ride home because her throat was sore, college student Stephanie Schmidt, only 3 days before her 20th birthday, was brutally raped and murdered by a coworker who had served 10 years in prison for rape. Unaware of his past, she did nothing wrong. Unaware of his past, she made no errant judgment. Unaware of his past, she accepted a ride from a coworker whose violent past was kept silent. If I had only known, echoes from that silence. Irresponsible silence, neglectful parole supervision, and the total lack of common sense gave every consideration to her murderer, but none to Stephanie. Although their grief exceeds their rage, the Schmidts focus immediately on the single purpose, to keep this from happening again. Their nonprofit organization has 3 goals. 1. To educate people about the dangers of violent predators. 2. Amending the parole and sentencing laws. 3. Helping other victims of violent crime and their families. The Schmidts focused on outdated laws when it comes to sex offenders. In 1993, first-time sex offenders were not required to register, and repeat sex offenders could get off the registry after they had served their time, even if they were known to be likely to reoffend. The public definitely was not protected from these violent sexual offenders. The Schmidts knew this law had to be changed. In 1994, they began lobbying to change the laws that if a sexual predator was likely to reoffend, that they would not be released. They could be civilly committed for further treatment. This became known as Stephanie's Law. Unfortunately, the Kansas Supreme Court struck down the law. But this law went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was upheld. I would say countless lives were saved by this law. Finally, a law that would keep sexual predators who were likely to reoffend back in the system and prevent them from going to find another victim. The Schmidts were involved in changing 6 laws. They are absolutely amazing people. They explain that the most difficult thing to change were people's attitudes. Do not blame the victims of rape. Continue to break the silence. The Schmidts went around to school organizations, churches, parent-teacher organizations, college campuses, and so many more places. Jean always says, don't put yourself in a risky situation. Trust your instincts. Don't remain silent. Silence kills. They also developed many educational programs. They explained that silence kills and education saves. Citizens have a right to protect themselves against violent sexual predators who are likely to reoffend. They even talked about the importance of reporting rapes. Victims of rape need to be encouraged to report it. Why is it that a person will report a robbery, but very seldom will report a rape? I know it is a very personal crime, A woman may be worried about what effects it will have on her to report this type of crime. Will she be believed? Will she be humiliated? The saddest part of the story is that after this monster was released from prison, he raped another girl before he raped Stephanie. But this woman did not go to the police. This woman did not report the crime. If she had come forward and reported that rape, it is likely that this monster would have been in jail, that he wouldn't have had the ability to hurt Stephanie. I am sure this woman regrets it to this day that she didn't report that rape. Rapes must be reported to stop violent criminals. If a woman reports a rape, she can stop this offender and make sure he doesn't have another victim. It could even save someone's life. The Speak Out for Stephanie Foundation put on walks every year to raise awareness and to raise funds for their organization. That's actually where I got this t-shirt. In college, I organized various teams to join in on these walks. When I got married, it meant the world to me that Jean, Peggy, and Jenny came. I know this was extremely hard for them because I didn't get to experience a wedding with Stephanie. Jenny did get married a few years later, and she has 2 daughters. Stephanie now has 2 nieces. I will include a video where Jean explains how hard it is to lose a child due to homicide.
All trauma is trauma.
Yes.
And there's no measuring which one's worse than anything else. But I think the difference maybe in death by homicide is that the person who was killed, the last person that saw her, is the person who killed her. There were no loving arms around them trying to bring them back to life or to help them. And that's a thought that's hard to get out of your head. And John Walsh was probably one of the most helpful on that to us when his comment was try not to focus on the last few minutes of her life, but remember all the good times. And I'd asked him, and this was like maybe 4 months after Stephanie had been killed, how long did it take you to get there? And he thought for once, probably about 3 years. And for us, it was about the same. And it varies. But for about 3 years, it's just hard not to get past the terrible thing that happened.
Anytime the Schmidts gave a presentation, they would end that presentation with a video of Stephanie. The video included multiple pictures and videos of Stephanie. It is set to the song If I Had Only Known by Reba McEntire. The Schmidts were able to meet with Reba one time after a concert, and she gave them permission to use this music. I will put that video down in the description box. Even to this day, I can't watch that video without tearing up. Stephanie was such a happy, beautiful young lady, and it just breaks my heart that her life was cut short by this monster and the failure of our justice system. I wonder how many people are alive today and unharmed because of the laws that were put in place with the help of the Schmidt family. There are various things we can learn from Stephanie's story. Number 1, learn from Stephanie and her parents. Always say I love you to friends and family anytime you can. I loved that Stephanie and her parents always ended their telephone conversations with I love you. I always do that now with my parents, my friends, my husband, and my kids. Because you never truly know when it will be the last time you speak to them. Anything can happen at any time. Number 2, if you go out with a group of friends, leave with that group of friends. Watch out for each other. No, Stephanie's work friends aren't responsible for her murder. The monster is the only one responsible for that. However, I know that they regret to this day not taking her home that night. However, hindsight is 20/20. They had no idea what would happen to Stephanie when she got in that pickup truck. Remember, they were failed by the system as well. They had no idea what kind of a criminal their coworker was. They have to live with the reality of that night every day. The monster took something from everyone that night. Third, If you know someone that has been raped, or if you have been raped, report it. You can save someone from being that person's next victim, or you could even save a life. In 2014, Stephanie's parents wrote her this letter. The pain, anger, and frustration come forward every year at this time, even 21 years later, all of which is not surpassed by the love that we continue to have for Stephanie, even in her absence. So many traditions continue: planting of flowers, burning of candles, maintaining a garden, honoring her name with a scholarship, and so much more. While we feel despair, we remind ourselves that love never dies. Although we all wanted so much more, we are grateful for the nearly 20 amazing years she shared with us. We will always love you, and we will always miss you, Stephanie. We know we will see you again. Love always, Mom and Dad. The tragic story surrounding Stephanie's murder changed my life as well, and led me on the path I am on today. I wanted to help victims of violent crime. During college, I interned with a victims program at a sheriff's department. I graduated with a psychology degree and chose to continue my education and attend law school. During law school, I worked in the victim witness program in a prosecutor's office. Stephanie's story is one of the reasons I started this channel, because the voices of victims need to be heard. Stories like Stephanie's need to be told. I know her story, and what her family has done afterwards has saved numerous lives. Jean, Peggy, and Jenny, if you are watching, I love you. I know Stephanie would be so proud of everything you have done for her, to get her justice, and to protect other people from the laws you helped change. I know she feels that she is so lucky to have you as her parents and her sister. Thank you for all you have done to protect us all. Thank you for joining me here today. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you'll be informed of my future videos. And follow me on social media as well so you'll be informed of the cases I am working on. If you have a topic you would like to see discussed on this channel, feel free to send me an email. As always, have a wonderful day. Watch out for each other and keep looking for that missing link. Love ya, and see you in my next video.